I never thought my own son would throw me out of his life like that. I could feel the cold glass under my trembling fingertips as I peered inside, my breath fogging up the window. There they were, my son, his wife, my granddaughter, and his wife's parents, all laughing around a table crowded with plates of oysters, lobster tails, and champagne flutes. My retirement fund had paid for that feast. I recognized the credit card, the same card my son insisted I let him manage for my safety. They told me dinner was canceled. "Everyone's tired, Mom," his text had said. I had nodded, alone in my kitchen, wrapping the pie carefully anyway. A part of me refused to accept that they'd leave me behind. But when curiosity gnawed at me so hard I couldn't breathe, I drove by the restaurant. And now I stood here, frozen, as they toasted to new adventures on my dime. I wanted to scream, to pound on the glass, and ask my son if he remembered all those nights I sat by his bed when he had asthma attacks. If he remembered the second job I worked to buy his first car. If he remembered how I sold my wedding jewelry after his father died so he could finish college without a single loan. Instead, I stood there like a ghost, my reflection merging with the neon glow of the seafood sign. Inside, my granddaughter giggled, clinking her water glass with her father's champagne. My daughter-in-law's head tilted back in laughter, her diamond earrings, the ones I helped pay for, sparkling under the chandelier. I don't even know how long I watched them. Minutes? Hours? Time felt warped, stretching endlessly as I absorbed every careless smile, every sip of expensive wine, every reminder that they had chosen indulgence over me. I thought about the promises my son made after his father died. "Don't worry, Mom, I'll take care of you." Those words had been my anchor, and yet here I was, standing outside a restaurant, excluded from my own life, my fingers curled around my purse strap so tightly that my nails left crescent moons in my palm. I could feel something inside me fracture, like an old ceramic vase dropped on the floor. What is love without respect? I asked myself, my voice a whisper lost in the night air. 2 hours ago, I remember rereading that text. "Dinner's canceled, Mom. We're all tired today," as if somehow the words would rearrange themselves into something kind. I kept glancing at the clock. 5 o'clock. 6. My hands trembled as I folded the same dish rag for the third time. I imagined them all curled up at home, too exhausted to eat. But then I remembered my granddaughter's bright eyes, her endless energy, and my daughter-in-law's fondness for fancy dinners. I remembered how my son never skipped a chance to show off, not even to his own mother. A sudden, terrible thought hit me so hard I had to sit down. What if they weren't home at all? I tried to fight the urge, but it built inside me like a rising tide. Finally, I grabbed my purse and keys, slipping on my old cardigan. My heart pounded as I got into my car, the steering wheel slick under my damp palms. I told myself I was just going for a drive, that maybe I'd pass by and see dark windows, proof they were really resting. Maybe I needed that lie to survive one more night. But as I turned onto the main street, I saw it. Their car parked right in front of the seafood restaurant. The place with the big blue sign and glass walls where they celebrated every birthday and every little milestone, all funded by my safe retirement money. There they were, my son in his favorite blazer, laughing. My daughter-in-law tossing her hair back, sipping from a champagne flute. My granddaughter bouncing in her chair, digging into a towering plate of oysters. I should have turned around and gone home right then, but something stronger than shame pinned me there, behind that planter, my back pressed against the cold brick. I watched them laugh, watched Tom lean in and whisper something to his wife that made her squeal with delight. Her father wiped tears of laughter from his eyes, dabbing carefully so as not to ruin the crease of his pressed shirt. Then I saw it again, my credit card sticking out of the leather bill folder like a scarlet letter. It glimmered under the low restaurant lights, a quiet witness to my humiliation. I felt bile rise in my throat. My knees trembled, my heart thumped so violently I thought I might collapse right there on the sidewalk. But I stayed, because I had to see it for myself. I had to know just how far they would go. Tom lifted his glass, his voice carrying through the window when the waiter came by. "To new beginnings," he said again, louder this time. His wife clinked her glass against his, her parents followed, and I saw a cruel sparkle in her eye. New beginnings? What did that mean? Was it about their new house renovation? Their new family investments? Or maybe it was just a new chapter without the burden of an old mother tagging along, only her bank balance tagging behind. The thought stabbed me. I pressed a hand against my chest, trying to soothe the pain spreading through me like poison, but even as I hurt, I felt something else bubbling up beneath it. Anger. Years of giving. Years of covering their debts, paying for their trips, their furniture, their countless emergencies. Years of being the silent ATM, always there to fix the gaps in their lives. I thought of the day Tom had convinced me to add him to my account. "It's just for emergencies, Mom," he'd said, wrapping his arm around me, kissing the top of my head like I was a fragile doll. I remembered how proud I felt then, how important, how loved. Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, clutching the phone like a lifeline, and just like that, the first spark of a plan flickered to life in my mind. I needed help, and I knew exactly who to call. I wiped my eyes, straightened my coat, and turned to face the dark street. My legs felt steadier now. The cold wind whipped at my cheeks, but I let it. It was better than the numbness. They thought they were feasting on my silence, but they had no idea I was about to serve them a bill they could never pay. My fingers dialed almost on their own, shaking as they hovered over the screen. Gloria, my best friend since university, a retired financial analyst. I croaked when she picked up. My voice sounded small, even to me. "Maggie? Hey, what's going on?" she asked, instantly alert. They ditched me," I stammered. "They went inside without me, and they're using my card to pay for everything. Right now. In there." There was a beat of stunned silence on her end. Then a sharp inhale. "I'm on my way. 15 minutes. You're not alone, okay? I gotcha." Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, clutching the phone like a lifeline. I waited on the cold curb, the night air gnawing at my bones, but I didn't feel it. All I could feel was the slow burn of betrayal crawling up my spine. It didn't take Gloria long. Her car screeched to a stop in front of me, and before I knew it, she was hurrying toward me, arms already outstretched. "Oh, honey," she breathed, pulling me into her chest. I didn't realize until then how badly I needed that hug. Her coat smelled like lavender and old books. It smelled like safety. When she pulled back, she scanned my face, her eyes sharp and searching, like she was checking for bruises only she could see. In a way, there were, but none she could bandage. "They're in there," I rasped. "They canceled dinner, told me to stay home, and now they're using my card." Gloria's eyes narrowed. She glanced over my shoulder at the glowing restaurant window across the street. Her gaze turned cold, that dangerous calm she always had when dealing with crooked clients. She took my hand and steered me gently across the street to a small, dimly lit cafe with big front windows, a perfect vantage point. We settled into a corner booth by the glass. From there, we had a direct, unbroken view of their table inside the restaurant. I could see them clearly, laughing and leaning in close, my card sitting right there on the table like some kind of twisted trophy. A waitress came by, and Gloria ordered us 2 teas. When they arrived, my hands shook as I tried to open a sugar packet, but Gloria caught my wrist, her touch steady and warm. "Listen to me," she said, her voice low but fierce, her eyes locked on mine. "You've given them enough. Enough money, enough forgiveness, enough power. You don't need to storm in there. You don't need to yell. You just need to end it." I swallowed hard, my throat tightening like a fist. "But how?" Gloria leaned forward, her expression turning sharp and almost mischievous. "You don't have your banking app on your phone, right?" I shook my head, ashamed. I never thought I'd need it. Tom always handled it. The words tasted bitter coming out. Gloria gave a small, knowing nod. She reached into her purse and pulled out her own phone, We're going to fix that right now. She downloaded the app for me, her fingers moving quick and precise. My hands trembled as I watched the progress bar inch forward, each second stretching like an hour. When it finally finished installing, Gloria slid my phone back across the table. "Now," she said, her voice softer but unyielding. "Call the bank. Tell them you forgot your login credentials. We'll get you back in." My heart pounded so loudly, I was afraid the whole cafe could hear it. I picked up my phone with clammy fingers and dialed. The automated voice on the other end felt like a wall, sterile and impersonal. But when a real person finally came on, I forced my voice steady. "Yes, I need help recovering my online banking login. No, I don't remember the username or password. Yes, I can verify my identity," I said, my voice wobbling at first, then growing firmer with each question. As I recited old security answers, my first pet's name, my childhood street, memories flickered behind my eyelids. I saw Tom as a boy, hugging his stuffed dog, running down that cracked sidewalk in the summer. The images stung like salt in an open wound. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the representative confirmed. "You're all set, ma'am. You should be able to log in now." I hung up, my fingers numb, and looked at Gloria. She nodded toward the phone, her eyes burning with quiet power. "Go ahead." I opened the app slowly, each screen loading like a held breath. When the dashboard finally appeared, my account balance stared back at me. All the savings I had spent a lifetime scraping together, all the sacrifices, all the nights I went without so they could have more. Then my eyes found the button. Freeze account. It seemed to glow under the cafe's dim, golden light. My finger hovered over it, trembling so violently I thought I might drop the phone. "They loved your money more than they ever loved you," Gloria whispered, leaning closer. "Quiet doesn't mean weak." I inhaled shakily, my thumb pressed down. A small, simple notification blinked on the screen. "Account frozen." A rush of warmth flooded my chest, mixing with tears that spilled down my cheeks. It felt like breaking through the surface after drowning for years. I looked up at Gloria, who reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "There," she said, her voice soft but fierce. "You did it. What if they can't pay?" I whispered. Gloria let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "That's exactly the point." I turned and looked out the window. Tom was raising another glass, his wife laughing too loud, tossing her hair back like she was in a movie. I could practically hear them echoing all the things they'd said to me over the years. Too sensitive, too dramatic, too easy to push around. They loved my money more than they ever loved me. I felt the tears come again, but they were different now. Hot, sharp, righteous. "Quiet doesn't mean weak," Gloria whispered. She wrapped her hand over mine, steadying it. For a moment, everything felt impossibly still. My heart pounded, then slowed. A strange, airy lightness spread through my chest, like I had just opened a window in a room I didn't know I was suffocating in. Gloria let out a slow breath and squeezed my hand. "There, it's done." I looked up at her, my vision blurring. "What happens now?" Gloria's mouth curved into that dangerous, triumphant smile I had only ever seen when she outmaneuvered a stubborn client. "Now, we drink our tea, and we watch." I turned back to the window just in time to see the waiter returning to their table, the bill in hand, an apologetic look on his face. Tom reached for my card, laughing, until the waiter shook his head. I saw confusion spread across their faces, then panic. For the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe, and as I took my first real sip of tea, it tasted like freedom. Gloria squeezed my fingers again. "Watch," she whispered. I watched. The waiter handed Tom the bill folder, his posture stiff, the edges of his polite smile starting to fray. Tom opened it, still grinning, oblivious. He slid my card into the little black reader, chatting with his father-in-law as if nothing could touch him. Then, the first flicker. His eyes darted to the machine when it beeped and flashed red. He frowned, like a child staring at a broken toy. He pulled the card out, checked it, then slid it back in. Beep. Declined. A crack appeared in his mask. He glanced quickly at his wife, his mouth twitching into an awkward half-smile. She leaned forward, her perfectly manicured nails drumming on the table in sharp, impatient little staccatos. Her eyes narrowed, her voice sharp. I could almost hear her hissing. "What's the problem? Just pay." Tom's hand trembled slightly as he tried again and again. Each time, the machine beeped, the red light blinking back at him like an accusation. His wife leaned in closer, her jaw tightening, her face turning hard and cold. Her father watched, his lips pressed into a thin line, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. Every drop of humiliation I had swallowed all these years suddenly felt lighter, almost laughable. Gloria leaned closer, her voice low and tinged with dark amusement. "They're sinking, Maggie. Let them." I took a small sip of tea, the warmth soothing my throat. Through the window, Tom's wife's parents had started rummaging through their wallets, exchanging frantic looks. Her mother's face was flushed with embarrassment. Her father kept adjusting his glasses, squinting at receipts as though they might magically produce the missing money. I could almost hear the sharp hisses of blame floating between them. Then Tom pulled out his phone, his thumb dancing furiously across the screen. My phone vibrated on the table, his name flashing across it like a final plea. Gloria nodded toward it. "Are you going to answer?" I looked at the screen for a moment. That familiar name that once meant warmth and safety, that once meant I had a place in someone's world. Now it felt like a chain, cold and heavy. I slid the phone aside, ignoring it. Tom's head snapped up, scanning the restaurant like a cornered animal. His wife was now turned toward him, hissing something into his ear. Her parents looked as though they wished the floor would swallow them whole. In that instant, I picked up my phone again. Gloria tilted her head, curious. I opened my messages and typed slowly, deliberately. "Enjoy dinner. On you this time." Then I pressed send. From our spot in the cafe, I saw Tom freeze when he read it. His shoulders sagged. His eyes darted around the room, as if he expected me to leap out of the shadows and scold him like a naughty child. But I didn't move. I sat in that warm little corner, wrapped in the quiet power I had so long denied myself. I watched as they fumbled, as his wife covered her face in her hands, as her father angrily waved his wallet at the waiter. Gloria let out a soft, wicked chuckle. "Oh, that's good. That's real good." I looked at her, a trembling laugh rising in my own throat, one that turned into something closer to a sob. But it wasn't sadness. It was relief. Through the window, I watched Tom stand, his face pale and tight. His wife grabbed his arm, her voice sharp and desperate. Their perfect little fortress had finally cracked. I leaned back in my chair, pressing a hand to my heart. "They loved my money more than me," I whispered. Gloria nodded, her eyes soft but strong. "And now they're paying the price." I turned back to the window, my spine straightening inch by inch. This wasn't just a dinner gone wrong. This was the moment I stopped being their silent servant and started being my own protector. Across the street, the scene inside the restaurant had turned into a full performance. Tom's wife was now openly scolding him, her voice sharp enough that nearby diners had turned to stare. Her parents took turns tossing cash onto the table, shuffling through cards and loose bills with frantic urgency. Tom glanced again at his phone, hoping for a miracle. When none came, he dropped his head into his hands. I knew that pose. I'd seen it 1,000 times when he was a boy. When he scraped his knee, when he lost his first job, when he broke his favorite toy. Back then, I always swooped in to fix it, to reassure him that everything would be okay. But tonight, I didn't move. Instead, I finally took a slow, steady sip of tea, savoring the warmth as it slid down my throat. Gloria raised her cup in a quiet toast. To finally putting yourself first, she said, her voice soft but fierce. I swallowed hard, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I nodded, tapping my cup gently against hers. Being alone is better than being used, I whispered. Gloria gave me a small, sad smile. Exactly. My phone buzzed again, vibrating insistently on the table. Tom was calling now. I stared at the screen, watching his name pulse like a wound. I thought about all the times he called me only when he needed money. The sweet, empty, "Love you, Mom," at the end of each transaction. The way his wife avoided hugging me, her cold cheek turning away. The way they always left me out of plans, treating me like an afterthought until the credit card bills arrived. I turned the phone over, screen down. Inside the restaurant, the tension had reached a breaking point. Tom's wife's father finally slammed a fist on the table, his face twisted in rage. Her mother was now dabbing tears with her napkin, mascara smudged. The waiter stood there, awkward and tight-lipped, clutching the unpaid bill. I could almost hear the argument. Why didn't you check the card? Why are we always relying on her? You said she was fine with it. Tom stood abruptly, shoving back his chair so hard it nearly tipped. He yanked out his own wallet and tossed it on the table. I saw him gesture wildly, his face flushed, his jaw clenched. Gloria leaned forward, her breath fogging the window slightly. "Look at them," she murmured. "The mighty kingdom crumbling." A small laugh burst out of me before I could stop it, sharp and bright, echoing against the cafe walls. It startled me. Laughter had felt foreign to me for so long. Not polite dinner party laughs, not forced chuckles to keep the peace, but real, belly-deep laughter that made my ribs ache. Across the street, Tom's wife was now clutching her purse to her chest like a lifeline. Her parents looked defeated, slumping into their chairs. I watched them for one last moment, then pushed my phone and cup aside. "It's time," I said to Gloria. She nodded, her eyes gleaming with quiet pride. "Time for what?" she asked, though I knew she already understood. I met her gaze, my voice steady. "To take back everything." We left the cafe together, the air heavier now, almost electric. I pulled my coat tighter around me as we walked. Each step felt like stepping out of a cage I didn't know I'd been locked in. Gloria walked beside me, matching my pace. She didn't fill the silence with forced optimism or cheap comfort. She just stayed there, solid and steady. When we reached the corner, I paused under the glow of a flickering street lamp. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Tom. "Mom, please answer. It's an emergency." An emergency. I almost laughed out loud. How many times had my emergencies gone unanswered? The days I called and he let it ring out because he was busy. The weeks I went without groceries because he forgot to transfer money. The Christmas I spent alone, staring at a cold stove because they decided to take a private family getaway, using my savings. I opened the text thread and scrolled. Dozens of messages, each one a variation of the same cold currency. Need money. Transfer today. Urgent. Not once did he ever write, "How are you, Mom?" or "Are you okay?" I felt something inside me snap. Quietly, like the final thread of a frayed rope. I looked at Gloria. "He convinced me to put him on my accounts just in case," I said. My voice shook, but not from fear. From rage. Gloria nodded slowly. "They always dress it up as concern. Just in case. For your safety. And before you know it, they're in control of your entire life." I clenched my fists. Memories flooded back. The day he had me sign the paperwork, his hand on my shoulder, the way he reassured me I wouldn't have to worry about anything anymore. He was right. I didn't worry. I didn't have to think. I just paid. And they just took. I inhaled sharply, the cold air burning my lungs. "No more," I whispered. Gloria stepped closer, her voice low but firm. "Then you start by removing him. Every account, every access. You reclaim every piece of yourself he's stolen. I stared at her. For a moment, I saw us as young women, me in my work uniform, her in her smart pencil skirts, the two of us scraping together rent money and dreaming about one day when we wouldn't have to answer to anyone. One day had finally come. I nodded, the decision settling into my bones like hot tea on a winter night. Gloria pulled out her phone and opened her notes app. Tomorrow, first thing. You go to the bank. You revoke every authorization. You set up new accounts, new passwords, everything. And while you're at it, you book a lawyer to fix your will. I looked at her, the corners of my mouth twitching upward. Always the accountant. I teased softly. She smirked. Someone's got to keep you from giving it all away again. I felt the first real warmth in my chest since that text had arrived. Tom's messages kept coming, a steady stream of frantic bubbles lighting up my phone screen. I turned off the notifications. I tucked the phone deep into my pocket, the final barrier between me and their desperation. Gloria looped her arm through mine, and we turned to walk back toward her car. For the first time in decades, I didn't feel like a walking wallet. I didn't feel like a mother who had failed. I felt like Margaret again. I barely slept that night. I sat in my armchair, knees tucked up to my chest, staring at the silent apartment walls. My mind played every conversation, every small betrayal, every tight smile I forced to keep the peace. I thought of all the birthdays I paid for, the house renovations I funded, the endless dinners I pretended to enjoy while they picked apart my life between bites of steak. I kept hearing Tom's voice in my head, that practiced, manipulative softness he used when asking for more money. Just a little extra, Mom. You don't want us to struggle, do you? Struggle. They didn't know the meaning of that word. When the first light crept through the curtains, I stood up and stretched my stiff legs. My joints ached, but I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. I showered, pulled on my best navy sweater, the one I had kept for special occasions. Today felt special, different. Gloria picked me up just after 8. She looked at me the way you look at a friend who's been underwater for years and finally broke the surface. You ready? She asked. I nodded. My hands shook as I held my purse, but my heart was steady. The bank lobby was quiet at that hour. We took a number and sat in the waiting area, side by side. I watched a young couple fuss over mortgage papers, a man tapping away on his phone, an elderly lady arguing over fees at the counter. Life kept moving, completely unaware that I was about to change mine forever. Finally, my number was called. The banker, a polite young man with sharp glasses and tired eyes, welcomed me to his cubicle. How can I help you today, Mrs. Brennan? He asked with that gentle, rehearsed smile. I inhaled, feeling my voice solidify in my chest. I want to revoke all shared access on my accounts, I said clearly. Remove all secondary users, change my passwords, and close any joint cards immediately. His eyes widened just a fraction, and then he nodded quickly. Of course. Do you have any specific names? I swallowed hard. My son's name stuck to my tongue like glue, but I forced it out. Tom Brennan. Each keystroke on his computer felt like a nail sealing a coffin. But not for me, for the old life I was burying. When it was all done, he printed out a thick stack of papers. I signed each one, my hand trembling at first, then stronger with each pen stroke. Gloria sat across from me, her eyes soft but brimming with pride. When I finished the last signature, the banker stood and extended his hand. It's all set. You are now the sole account holder, Mrs. Brennan. I shook his hand firmly. Thank you, I said, and I meant it more than I ever meant it to anyone else behind a counter. As we left the bank, I felt a rush of air in my lungs, like I had been holding my breath for years, and finally exhaled. Outside, Gloria squeezed my shoulder. You did it, she whispered. I looked at her, a laugh bubbling up from somewhere deep inside me. I did, didn't I? And I meant every word. In that moment, standing on the sidewalk, with the morning sun hitting my face, I realized something powerful. I hadn't just frozen an account. I had unfrozen myself. I thought that after the bank, I would feel exhausted, that the weight of it all would come crashing down and send me crawling back to bed. But as Gloria drove us back, I felt sharper, more alive than I had in years. Every nerve felt electric, my heart steady and unafraid. When we pulled up outside my apartment, Gloria turned off the engine and looked at me carefully. "Do you want me to stay with you today?" she asked, her voice soft. I shook my head. "No, I need to do the rest on my own." She didn't argue. She knew me well enough to recognize the steel in my voice. Before she left, she pressed a folded piece of paper into my hand. "Just in case," she said. "My lawyer's number. You'll need it when you update your will." I nodded, hugging her tight. "Thank you. For everything." When I got upstairs, I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the sunlight catching the rim of the mug. My phone buzzed again. Tom. This time, he had left voicemails. I pressed play, leaning back in my chair. The first one was angry, his voice sharp and vicious, calling me selfish, dramatic, accusing me of ruining everything. The next was softer, dripping with false remorse. "Mom, please, let's talk. You know I love you. Don't do this. We can work it out." And finally, the last one, nearly a whisper. "I need you." I set the phone down. Once upon a time, those words would have destroyed me. They would have pulled me back into the same orbit, orbiting around his needs, his crises, his endless hungers. But today, I felt only a hollow echo. I opened my laptop and began drafting a new financial plan. Line by line, I removed Tom from every account, every safety net, every trust I had built over the years. I saw the numbers. The emergency fund I had once intended for him, the savings I kept in case he needed help. One by one, I moved them to new private accounts. Each click felt like snipping a puppet string. When I finished, I closed the laptop and felt the room exhale with me. I stood and walked to the mirror by my front door. My reflection looked different. Older, yes, but stronger, steadier. There was a sharpness in my eyes I hadn't seen in decades. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Tom. "We need to meet. You owe me an explanation." I stared at it for a long time. Then, without thinking, I picked up my coat and my purse and walked out the door. I knew exactly where to find him. I arrived at the restaurant, the same one from that night, just as the lunch crowd was starting to thin. Tom was there, sitting at a table by the window, nervously tapping his phone. When he looked up and saw me, relief flooded his face. He stood quickly, moving toward me like a scolded child seeking forgiveness. "Mom," he started. But I held up my hand, stopping him mid-sentence. Without a word, I reached into my purse and pulled out a thick envelope. Legal papers, notarized and final. I set them on the table in front of him. He looked down, confusion turning to horror as he realized what it was. I had disinherited him. Completely. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I didn't wait for them. I turned and walked out, my heels clicking against the floor like a slow, steady drumbeat. Outside, I paused and took a deep breath. For the first time in my life, I felt untouchable. I made it halfway down the block before I heard it. "Mom, wait!" Tom's voice, ragged and desperate, cut through the street noise. I turned slightly, just enough to see him stumbling after me, clutching the legal envelope to his chest as if it were a lifeline. "Please! Just listen," he gasped, his eyes wide and wet, panic rolling off him in waves. I stopped, but I didn't step closer. He caught up and grabbed at my sleeve, his fingers trembling. "Mom, you don't understand." I was stressed. We had debts. The house, the business. I was just trying to keep everything together. "You can't do this to me," he said, his voice cracking. I looked at him. Really looked. The boy I raised. The man I tried to save over and over. And yet all I saw was a hollow shape filled with excuses. "Please, Mom, you know I love you," he added, his voice dropping to a pathetic whimper. I felt a strange wave of pity, but it wasn't for him. It was for the woman I used to be, the one who would have believed this, folded into his arms, and handed over every last cent just to feel needed. I pulled my sleeve from his grasp, slow and deliberate. "No, Tom," I said, my voice low and calm. "You love my money. You love my silence. You love that I always say yes." His face crumpled. "That's not true. You're my mother." "Exactly," I said. "A mother deserves respect, not just empty words when the accounts run dry." He looked around wildly, as if the crowd passing us might intervene on his behalf. But no one did. To them, we were just two strangers arguing on the sidewalk. Tom dropped to his knees, right there, on the dirty city pavement. "Please, I'm begging you," he sobbed, gripping my hand now, holding on as if he might drown without it. A part of me wanted to pull him up, to comfort him, to fall back into that old dance. But the other part, the part that had been born in that cafe, that had clicked freeze, that had signed every bank document, held firm. I looked down at him, my heart heavy but resolute. "Get up, Tom," I said softly. "Have some dignity. You won't find what you're looking for here anymore." He just sobbed harder, his shoulders shaking. I gently pulled my hand free. "I loved you more than my own life," I said, "but you taught me that love without respect is just a prison." I turned and started walking again. I didn't look back this time. Behind me, his cries echoed against the buildings, sharp and hollow. When I reached the corner, I paused, steadying my breath. I could feel the sun on my face, warm and bright. For a moment, I closed my eyes and tilted my head up, letting it wash over me like a blessing. Then I stepped forward into the crosswalk, my footsteps sure and quiet. He had called me a burden, a servant, a wallet. But today, he learned that a quiet woman can carry a storm inside her, and when she finally lets it out, it leaves nothing standing. I thought that would be the end. I thought that maybe, finally, he would disappear into his new world of consequences, letting me slip quietly into mine. But 2 days later, the knock came. It was early evening. I had just finished repotting the lavender on my balcony, humming to an old Billie Holiday record. The sun was sliding down, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges. When the knock sounded, it rattled the door like a sudden thunderclap. I froze for a moment, my hands still in the soil. Then I rose slowly, wiping my fingers on a rag. Another knock. Louder. More desperate. I knew who it was before I even looked through the peephole. Tom. His face was red and twisted, eyes wild and shining, with something between rage and panic. I didn't open the door. He banged again, harder now, his voice muffled but sharp. "Mom, open this door. We need to talk." I stood there, my breath steady, my hand resting on the doorknob but not turning it. "Mom, please, you can't do this to me." His voice cracked, turning almost childlike, as if he were still that little boy begging for another cookie after dinner. I thought of all the times I did open the door. All the times I let him walk in and take and take and take, each time leaving me a little more hollow than before. I pressed my forehead lightly to the door, closing my eyes. "Please, I need you," he sobbed. A quiet ache bloomed in my chest, but it wasn't the old weakness. It was grief for the mother I had been, the woman who thought she could buy love by bleeding herself dry. I took a deep breath and stepped back from the door. Outside, his fists pounded again, echoing like a war drum through the hallway. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and took a sip. My hands were steady. My breath was even. The knocking turned into kicking. Then came the yelling. "You owe me. You hear me? You owe me. I gave up everything for you." I almost laughed at that. The lies he had told himself had become so big, so distorted, they could fill a stadium. I reached for my phone and dialed calmly. "Hello, officer?" "Yes." There's a man outside my apartment door refusing to leave. He's yelling and threatening. Yes, yes, I'm safe. I just need someone to come. The dispatcher's voice was calm and kind. She stayed on the line with me until I heard the sirens echo in the distance. I sat at the kitchen table, looking at my lavender, tracing the rim of my water glass with my finger. When the police arrived, I heard the officers talking to Tom. His shouting turned to pleading, then to a low, defeated murmur. Moments later, I heard them lead him away. I didn't look out the window. I didn't need to. Instead, I stood and closed the balcony door, turning off the record player. The room fell into a soft, sacred silence. There would be no more knocks. No more forced apologies. No more tears meant to chain me to old wounds. He might try again tomorrow, next week, next year. But he would find no open door, no hidden account, no silent, forgiving mother waiting on the other side. I had locked it all away. A few weeks passed quietly. I didn't hear from Tom. No more pounding on my door. No more desperate messages flooding my phone. It was as if he had evaporated into the air, leaving behind only faint echoes. A few weeks passed quietly. I didn't hear from Tom. No more pounding on my door, no more desperate messages flooding my phone. It was as if he had evaporated into the air, leaving behind only faint echoes. One Friday evening, Gloria stopped by with a basket of fresh bread and 2 slices of berry tart from her favorite bakery. I thought we could have a little treat, she said as she stepped inside, her voice bright but gentle. I set the kettle on and laid out 2 small plates. We sat at my kitchen table, the soft light from the lamp catching on her silver hair. She watched me closely as I sliced the tart, her fingers drumming lightly on the table. Finally, she sighed and leaned back. I wasn't sure if I should tell you this, she started, her voice cautious. My hand paused mid-slice. Tell me what? She looked at me for a moment, her eyes searching my face. Tom's wife left him, she said quietly, packed up all her things and ran back to her parents. Word is she was furious.